I do this
They don't
stuff.
do this stuff. I do this stuff.
I do this stuff. All right, well, let's do this stuff.
I don't know what I walked into.
It's a bitch.
All right, everyone, warm up those brains. It's time for the Get More Smarter podcast. This is episode 253. I did that on my fingers. I'm Jason Bain.
I'm Ian Silveri. This week on the Get More Smarter podcast, the shitdown, shutdown, or shutdown, shitshow, or whatever you want to call it, is officially on in Washington, D.C. as Democrats and Republicans fail to reach an agreement on a temporary funding measure, and Mike Johnson and Donald Trump are just lying about it everywhere. Then, the hands-down winner for least self-aware, giant, unprecedented military leadership gathering of the century is announced, and you won't believe truly how much they deserve this one. Then, a pretty big group of Colorado Republicans love them some Marxism. Really, as a different group of Colorado Republicans can't figure out the basic rules for replacing retiring lawmakers. Continuing in our quest to interview every Democrat in a competitive primary for a big race in Colorado in 2026, State Representative Brianna Titone joins us to talk about her campaign for state treasurer, what it's like being the first openly transgender state legislator in Colorado history, and her side gig as a TV and movie producer. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our guest today, State Representative Brianna Titone, who is a dedicated public servant and problem solver with a strong background in finance, technology, and leadership. A proud resident of great Jefferson County's great city of Arvada. For nearly 17 years, Brianna's journey to Colorado was driven by her career as a geologist. Since then, she has expanded her expertise through roles as a mining consultant and a full-stack web developer. Brianna made history as Colorado's first openly transgender elected official when she won her seat in the state legislature in 2018. If elected as Colorado's next state treasurer, she would become the first openly transgender statewide executive-level official in the whole country, breaking new ground for representation while bringing a valuable skill set, trust, and dependability to all Coloradans. Representative Titone, thank you so much for joining us on the Get More Smarter podcast.
I am very happy to be here with you today.
So, before we get into your campaign for state treasurer, tell us a little bit about yourself, besides all the stuff I put in the spiel, and what inspired you to first run for the state house in 2018 in a seat that Democrats hadn't won in about 10 years before that.
Right. Well, I came out here to Colorado in 2008. I wanted to be an FBI special agent. I really wanted to do. I was a volunteer firefighter back in New York when I was a teenager. Public service was something that was always kind of ingrained in me, and started the process to do the FBI thing. But I was traveling all over the world as a mining consultant, so I was all over the place. So the process of getting into the FBI is long enough as it is, and I ended up turning 37, and they don't want you after 37. For me, I wanted this job. I was considered to be like the most competitive candidate in the pool. I thought that there was no way I wasn't going to do this. And then, of course, I got too old. That wasn't on my bingo card. But I thought, well, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do with myself? Because I was going to dedicate my life to this service to the country, and I couldn't do it anymore. So I started to be an activist, and I ended up coming out as being trans at that time because I was trying to use the FBI job as a way to distract myself from myself. I wasn't willing and able and ready to come out as myself because of, the world is kind of harsh to trans people. It's a hard decision to make. If anybody ever says like, oh, there's nefarious reasons for being a trans person, like, no, you don't want to be somebody who's not favorably in the world. You want to.
It's not just to use other bathrooms, like Republicans say.
Yeah, exactly. But so I came out. I started to be an activist, and went down to the Capitol. I went down to see my state rep, and he didn't come out to see me, talk to me. We wanted to talk about the conversion therapy bill, and so I learned very quickly that there are people in that place that don't really care about all their constituents in the way that they. So the chair of the party, she said, "Hey, you know what? You're a pretty good leader. You're really smart, and we need somebody to run for this seat. So, why don't you do that?" And I said, "Well, a trans person's never won this any House seat anywhere. So how am I supposed to do that? And, so she gave me a little space, and I saw Danica Rome win her race in 2017. And then I started to look at the numbers. And even though the Republican won by 14%, Hillary Clinton won by 11 votes.
Mm.
And I said, that's 10 more than I need. But why not?
Right.
We just jumped in and said, I think we can do it, because what people are been craving is actual connection and communication, and just having people feel like they're part of the solution and not just, cogs in the machine, that they're just voters and they're just going to vote for them and do whatever they want. I'm not a sitting on a pedestal kind of person. I go in the trenches and I do the things with everybody. When I was a consultant, I wouldn't open the window a crack and talk to the guys I was working with. I would be standing out in the rain with them and doing the work, because you can't get respect from people if you don't want to experience the same kinds of things that they do, and have that empathy for them in the trenches with them. And that's what I've always done in my career. And so if I just say, well, I'm just going to be myself, and that should be pretty easy sell. Turns out, it was a pretty easy sell. My identity wasn't really an issue. It never was a talking point in the campaign. Didn't come up at the doors. And, it was just giving people faith that somebody who wants to run for office isn't trying to just do something for myself. I'm actually just trying to do the work of the people. And that's like a new concept for some people these days.
Do you think that helped you personally in your own transition, just being out there and people being not outwardly concerned about it?
Yeah, I could tell you a few stories about people who I talked to at the doors that I had really weird conversations with. But
Well, sure.
I just I understand that people don't get it, and I understand that they ask weird questions that are insulting at times. But I try not to get mad. I know when people are being mean on purpose, and when they're not, I just want them to understand, because that's what it's all about. It's about teaching people and getting people to see that people are different, and it doesn't matter, because some people who are different can do amazing things too. And we should all get that chance to do things for the community if we want.
You have a background in geochemistry and you worked as a geologist. Has that scientific training been beneficial in your approach to policy making, or is that just like another language entirely?
Well, it doesn't exactly apply to a lot of legislative topics. It's not like, this year, a free bill or anything. So, I don't get tagged to do a lot of this stuff. But, being a scientist in general, I think is a really important aspect of actually getting things done, because it's all about the data, right? It's all about making sure that you understand and have a critical thinking ability to look at, well, what are they trying to say? How are they trying to present this? What are they leaving out? Anytime you have something that you want to prove and you want to have a theory about, and you want to make a thesis and prove your thesis, you have to look at all of the data that there is and find the gaps, test things out. And that's what I do really, really well. And that's why I ask a lot of questions to people that most people don't ask. Like that time when I asked the Catholic priest if he was celibate. I mean, I did do that. It got a lot of fire. But he did reply that he was a handsome man, so we know the answer to why, if he was celibate or not. But I mean, that's more of a joke question, but from a real event. But I ask questions that people don't think about, and that gets to some of these answers that make people say, and that's why I've been successful, I think, with some of the policies that I've done, is because nobody's done them before, and nobody's done them before because they didn't think of the way that you could get it done. And that's what I'm trying to bring into the treasurer's role, is that perspective of, I want to ask the people in the Treasury lots of questions, and I want them, the answers that I'm hoping to get are, I haven't thought of that. Because if I get that answer, I know that there's something that we haven't explored that could lead us to something that might be a solution to something we've been looking for. And having that ability to ask those questions is really critical.
We'll get into the race and a little more on your policy history in a second here, but the question we've been asking all our guests who are running in these primaries, baseline, why are you a Democrat? What is your origin story for registering and then running as a Democrat?
Yeah. Well, I was an unaffiliated voter most of my life, actually. It was just more of just not really getting into it. I never really had an interest in anything in particular. I was interested in lots of other things, but politics wasn't exactly the thing I was exploring a lot of. My parents were both Democrats. Most everybody were Democrats in my life, and I grew up with a lot of the values of having pro-choice and pro-union. My dad was a union leader. He was the president of his local union. So I was exposed to a lot of that, but I think I just didn't want to associate myself with any particular party at the time, just because I was always had that thought that maybe I would get into the FBI, and I didn't want to have that
that
as
makes sense.
something that would even have a bias that I was really open to. So that's kind of the approach that I've had in my scientific and in my political world, is just really trying to understand what the issue is and take that. But I actually registered as a Democrat in 2010 because of Andrew Romanoff. And Andrew Romanoff was running for Senate against Michael Bennet. And he wasn't taking corporate PAC money. And this was just around the time when Citizens United was giving permission to have money in politics. And I really believed in that sentiment that we shouldn't be listening to the money. We should be listening to the people, and the people should be the ones that are calling the shots. And that big, bold statement of, being a grassroots candidate and doing the work of the people really resonated with me. And I canvassed for him and caucused for him and everything a little bit. So that was my first time where I actually was officially a Democrat. And I mean, it was pretty obvious that my values really aligned with the Democratic Party, trying to bring people together, create opportunities for people, give people the ability to do things and not take away their freedoms and their ability to participate. And I think that that's really what being a Democrat for me is. And it's just, I think you can have some financial conservative values and common sense things that kind of filter into it. But for the most part, the two parties have become more of a wedge issue things, and the Republicans are just on the wrong side of these issues that they have no reason to be in. You can't be the party of small government if you're trying to tell people what you can and can't do with your body and things like that. And you can't, governments are here to help you with the services that we do, not starving the government, which ends up starving the people even more.
Let's talk about your legislative career. During your time in the State House, is there a particular piece of legislation that you are most proud of, that if your political career ended tomorrow, you could say, at least I did that?
I would say that the one thing that is probably the thing that's most talked about is the right to repair for farm equipment. And what's ironic about that is that the Midwestern states that have been trying to do this policy for many years, they're the same ones that are persecuting trans people so much. I like to remind them that a trans person gave farmers the right to repair here in Colorado, so they should be careful about persecuting those trans people, because they might be able to be the ones to do it for them.
Right on.
And that issue was about, if you have a farm equipment that breaks down, you would need to have you used to have the manufacturer do some of the repairs, right? You couldn't just do it yourself.
It's pretty much true about any kind of electronic device anymore. There's a lot of hardware and software things that say if you don't have access to it with the special code or the special tool or be able to get the parts, have the readily availability of parts, then how do you really own that piece of equipment if you can't actually change something or modify that to
Yeah.
replace a part? And the farmers are paying $500,000 for these things. And when you're spending, $500,000 on a tractor, and you have no ability to fix it when you have crops to tend to right now, that's really, really bad for their business. So that's an important aspect of giving them the freedom to be able to do that. And farming is a timing thing. You have to do things right now, and you don't want to hamstring and tie their hands. You want to get them doing their work.
What was the most difficult vote you've had to cast so far as a member of the state legislature, and how did you work through the decision?
Yeah, this is something I tell people a lot about. So in addition to being a volunteer firefighter, I also am a volunteer with a group called NecroSearch, and we're a group of scientists and specialists and former law enforcement people who look for dead bodies to help solve crimes. And with this group, we want to find the body for the family because they want to say goodbye to the family. They will go to the end of the world to try to say goodbye to their loved one, and it consumes their life, and they will never stop. It's incredibly sad when they can't, because that's what we're trying to do, is trying to bring closure for them. So the vote that was the most difficult for me was the death penalty. And I know very well, I've heard all the arguments, and I have always had the sentiment in my mind that the death penalty is something we shouldn't have. And in a lot of states, it is applied very, very, very liberally in a bad way in this case, because a lot of people end up on death row and they shouldn't. And it is disproportionate to different minority groups. But in Colorado, we had a lot of mitigating factors that could get you off of being on death row. And one of the good examples is the Aurora theater shooter did not get the death penalty. And that was because some of the victims' families did not want that. And it was not applied. So there's a rigorous way of applying the death penalty to cases where it's not always the option, because there are lots of different off ramps. And then the other thing, which goes back to the NecroSearch conversation, is that we use the death penalty as leverage to get the body from the person who killed somebody and say, we're going to give you the death penalty if you don't tell us where the body is. And they usually will give up the location of the body and allow us to find it and then give closure to the family. But without that leverage, without that extra thing that goes beyond life in prison, those people will just taunt and smile and smirk mercilessly at those family members, because they know where their loved one is and they won't tell them because we don't have the leverage for that. And it was a really, really hard decision for me to make, but those were the reasons why I supported not abolishing the death penalty. And because this was such a sensitive topic to so many people, I wrote about it in my newsletter and was very, very open and clear about my reasons, because I wanted people to know that I just didn't want to just kill everybody who was in prison. It was bad.
The important thing is that you thought through it. That's all you can ask of an elected official, I think, is to give a thoughtful answer. Let's talk about the campaign for treasurer. We've been lucky enough to interview State Treasurer Dave Young a couple of times, so we have a decent understanding of the office. But when people ask you, oh, what does the state treasurer do? What's your quick 15-second response?
Yeah, I usually say it's like the banker in Monopoly. That's the really short answer. But
as you're wearing the hat, the top hat?
No, I usually tell people the treasurer is responsible for money that's taken in from different sources through taxes and fees and federal money, and has to invest the money when it comes in, and then administer a bunch of different programs to try to bring value to the people of Colorado through loan programs and savings programs, the Unclaimed Property Trust Fund, and then also helping advise the retirement program from PARA. So really just about managing the investments in a responsible fiduciary way to bring as much prosperity to Colorado through the interest and investment income that we.
It's a better answer than I have.
You've
Give
probably
them the
given it more.
monopoly one. That'll
That's right. Along that same line, because I think this is a very important office, but it's one that people just, I think, largely don't get. How do you make people interested in this race? We've talked about it before with Treasurer Young, because it's hard for people to grasp that this is something they should really put thought into.
Yeah, it has been challenging because usually, with the other statewide offices, the question is, how are you going to stick it to Trump? And,
Right.
the treasurer doesn't really have any way to do that. So, I think that what it really comes down to is having a way of, when you invest in anything, you're making a moral statement and you're making a statement about your values. And how we can do that in the best way possible is something that the Treasury can do. And that's something when you have access to all of this money, which is billions of dollars, there's a lot of power in that money and that investment that you make. So that's kind of where I try to emphasize people about what's important. But I think the Unclaimed Property Trust Fund is something that really resonates with a lot of people when I tell them that the money that's in the trust fund is people's money. Have you checked recently to see if you guys have any money in there? You should. And any listener who's out there, go look up the Unclaimed Property Trust Fund in Colorado, see if you have money, because that money's there for you to take. But when the legislature is trying to take that money and use it for other things, that's not right. It's a trust fund. It's not tax money. We shouldn't be using it for other purposes. And, being somebody in this office who's going to defend that money for people to come get later is something that a lot of people really respect, that I'm willing to fight the legislature on trying to preserve the money that belongs to them. And I want them to get it. I want to make it easier for them to get that money back, because anybody out there, would be happy to get $5 or $10 or $20 if they could get it. And I've already been working with Treasurer Young and OIT to make the My Colorado app a way of authenticating your identity, so that way you can get the money back very, very quickly. So I facilitated that relationship as the chair of the technology committee, because it's such an easy, low-hanging fruit thing to do. If your driver's license is in the My Colorado app, we know who you are.
Right.
Let's get the money back.
So why did you decide to run for treasurer specifically? I mean, you're an accomplished state rep. I don't know if there's a overlaying Senate seat that would have been available. You also have, I guess you're not a lawyer, so AG's, off the table. But what made you decide to run for treasurer? Why is this the next step in your public service?
Yeah, well, we don't have a lot of different open seats that are available. The Senate seat technically will be available to me to run, but I've juggled around from different career in the past. I worked about 7 years in environmental. I worked about 7 years in mining. I worked 5 or 6 years in software before I got into politics. And, being a state rep is not easy work, especially when you really strive to do it well. And that's what I strive to do every single time that I do this job, is to set the bar. I wanted to set the bar high for the next person who takes my seat. And
You're termed out, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm termed out in 2026. And I want people to say, you know what? Rep Titone did it better. Why can't you do it like that? Not a lot of people like that to run for these seats. I do the work the way I would want somebody to do the work. I did that as the HOA president. I've always done that. And it's hard when you do the work really well and you put your heart and soul into it, you answer the emails and you do all the things. There's a Republican guy. He always emails me and he said, I read this bill and I disagree with it. Tell me why you like this bill. And I would reply back with all these details and examples and articles. And then he would just, like, well, I disagree, but I see your point. He was
That's great.
redistricted out of my district. And then when that happened, he sent me an email and he said, I'm very disappointed that you are not going to be my state rep anymore. And I replied back to him and I said, well, Tom, don't worry. If your state rep doesn't reply back to you the way I do, and I don't expect them to, you just send that email to me. And now that I'm running for treasurer, he sends me emails again, asking me questions about things. And I always email him back. But that's the job. I know he's a Republican. I know his values don't align. I know we don't agree, but I treat him the same as everybody else that sends me an email because I want them to know, what's up. So because I've put that kind of effort into the job, and because I'm a woman, and because I'm a trans person, this job is really, 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 really hard. It's like, anybody can say this job is hard. They don't know what my experience is like in this job. It is really, 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 really hard to have to see all the comments every single time that I post something and the things that people say, and, just having to always look over my shoulder just in case, because somebody may not like my identity. It's very stressful. I love it. I love the work. It's so rewarding. I wanted to change the world and I'm doing it. And this is the most incredible thing in the world. But doing this for 8 years, after finishing up next year, 8 years of this work, of fighting the biggest fights and doing the biggest policies out there, like right to repair and the AI regulation and things like that. Like, these are bills that, even fighting HOA stuff, that is is drained my soul. That's like the worst thing ever. It's even worse than like any issue. But I've taken these things on because I'm passionate about it. I put myself into my policies, and I put myself into the people's struggles when they tell me about something. And when you do that, look at this gray. Look at this gray hair. That's not part of my color job. That's my real gray.
Look at Ian's.
Yeah, I know. I can see this gray. It's amazing. It's incredibly difficult to do that, and to do that for another 4 or 8 years in the Senate. I've done amazing work in the legislature, and now it's time for me to do some amazing work in another office. And I think for the treasurer's race in particular, I've always been interested in financial things. I've been investing in mutual funds and stocks since I was in high school. When I turned 18, I was dabbling and always trying to understand these things and look at the trends. And it's been something I've always been interested in, but as a scientist, I've never had the time to really dig into it. So this is an area that I really want to learn a lot more about and to be immersed into it as my job. I'm going to just gobble up everything that I can and be the scientist that I am. I'm just really learning everything that's possible to do this job the best that I can. So I think that that's really, why this office in particular is very attractive to me. And, why would I want to run for governor against Phil Weiser and Michael Bennet? Because that's just stupid. Because they have a lot bigger following than I do.
You mentioned that the office of treasurer is one of those that can't really do anything to Trump, which is a big part of running in a primary election for any Democrat this next cycle. What is your pitch then to primary voters that you're the one that Democrats should nominate in 2026?
I think like the policy work that I've done in the legislature by being courageous and standing up to things that, nobody has done before shows courage. And, I'm sure that you follow me on social media and you've seen a lot of the things that I say. I say some snarky things that are well within my ability of not getting called out for it, because, I'm trying to be really careful about not getting into a problem area, but making a point with humor and satire and saying what's on my mind, because people want to see that. And that's why people follow me on social media, follow me on all of the things, by the way. And, it's like, that I think using the bully pulpit of a statewide office, I think is something that, I mean, Dave Young has done it a little bit, but I think that this could be done a lot more. And, when it comes to tariffs and making the economy hurt because of that, and getting on social media or some of the news shows and talking about how that affects us, I'm not going to be afraid to be doing that. And, having courage is what we really need right now. And, if anybody didn't think I was courageous enough to be a trans person in politics, I also do stand-up comedy. And some people say that they wouldn't be caught dead doing that.
Well, before we let you go, and thanks so much for spending time with us today. We know you're on the road campaigning, and literally on the road campaigning, and we appreciate you joining us today. We do understand that in addition to your legislative and stand-up career and your campaign for state treasurer, you also are producing and starring in sitcoms and films. Can you tell us a little bit about General Assembly and those other creative projects that you're working on?
Yes, well, so I have two projects that I've actually been in the festival circuits right now, and one of them is General Assembly, as you said, and that was kind of an idea I came up with a long night on the House floor, and I needed something to distract myself from the continuous flow of whatever it was that was being repeated. I started writing a script about a state legislature. So I have a lot of experience doing this. And so I'm kind of pulling my own experiences, the main characters based off of my experience. I like to say that I'm in season 7 of General Assembly this year. But people don't pay enough attention to the state legislature. They don't pay attention to stuff at all. But I know everybody loves political dramas and political comedies. So why not really give some, the audience out there the ability to experience the state legislature, which is the most important one and the most impactful. And how do we get people to want to consume this kind of actual stuff? If we give them a fictionalized version of it, and then we sprinkle in a little bit of reality into those episodes, maybe people will say, oh, wow, I want to really see what that's like in real time. And then maybe we can get them to actually pay more attention to what we do. But I want to teach people about the topics that we have and everything. And then the other one is called Not a Token Bill. And that was a mockumentary that I made with Representative Garcia. And this was like a last minute thing. I said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we made a mockumentary about a bill that's super boring and nobody cares about? And she's like, yeah. So we just started filming people about this bill. It's one line. The whole bill is one sentence. And we made a 30-minute film about it. And the speaker's in it, Senate President Fenberg's in it, the governor's in it. And we made this in 10 days while the session was going, edited the whole thing, and then presented it to everybody on the floor of the House in a recess on the last day. And we had a full house watching this video. And we were all laughing together. And if you recall, in 2023, the Republicans walked out on us. And in 2024, we were all having fun and working together, to have a laugh and enjoying a film. So I think that's where I feel that there's a lot of power in storytelling and humor in particular. I try to bring humor in my work all the time because I don't want to be the joke. I want to be telling a joke. And that's something that if people are laughing with me, they're not laughing at me. And that helps to break down a lot of the barriers and the tension. I'll tell you what, one quick story. This is really good. So I'm a new legislator and I'm trying to repeal this Senate Bill 205 from a while ago that made it so you had to have a vote if you wanted to have municipal broadband.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody was like, they were like, they didn't want to do it. So I had all the telecom lobbyists in this room. And they're all looking at me like, who the hell is this person? Why what do they know? So I say, all right, everyone, I know why you know why you're all here. Your great uncle died and you're all on the will. And one of you murdered him. And we're not leaving here until we find out who did it. And they all looked at me like I was freaking crazy. but it broke down a little bit of the tension because
Yeah.
they weren't
Yeah.
expecting that. So like these
Yeah.
are the kinds of things that I try to do because I know, like, hey, look, I know this is a serious business, but we got to take ourselves a little less seriously sometimes.
Absolutely.
Right on. Well, State Representative, candidate for Treasurer, Brianna Titone, where can people find you online or get involved in the campaign?
BriannaForCO.com on our website. There's links to all my social media. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Threads, Blue Sky, Mastodon. I technically am still on Twitter, but don't follow me there. And Instagram and Facebook. So I'm on all the things. But
Well, Brianna Titone, thank you so much for coming on the Get More Smarter podcast. Good luck with your campaign. We'll be following along. And if you win the nomination, we'll have you back on to chat a little bit about the general. Sound good?
all right, sounds good. We'll see you then.
All right, stay
All right,
safe. Go
thank
fight,
you.
win out there. Thanks again. Everyone's got 2 jobs these days, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if they get paid for the other job or if they're like us and it's not.
Volunteer
not
gigs?
Not so lucrative.
I mean, she's winning awards on the festival circuit, which
Yeah.
we've gotten some wonderful recognition for the podcast, but I don't think we've actually won an award yet because, as we discovered, all those things are fucking pay-to-play schemes, and we don't do that shit because we don't have any money for this.
Yeah. We can't pay for playing.
No ads, no sponsors, no Patreon, just us.
Well, that puts us in a similar position as the rest of the federal government because there's a shutdown. The last one was in 2018 and bled into 2019, making it the longest in U.S. history.
And that was about 35 days long, right?
Yeah, something like that. And it only ended because Trump gave up on trying to get gazillions of dollars for a border wall. I would have to think that makes Trump a little nervous, and you can kind of see it in his false bravado on social media. In Colorado, some 54,000 workers are now in limbo. People at NOAA are not doing research. People at the Environmental Protection Agency are still working, but they don't know for how long. It's not a great way to head into the holiday season. I've seen a lot of pontification that this shutdown is different than other shutdowns. Before I kind of explain why I think that may or may not be true, what do you think?
Manishtana halayla hazeh. That's like a Hebrew thing you say during Passover. Why is this night different than every other? So why is this shutdown different? This shutdown is different for a variety of reasons. One, I said this last week, and I'm changing my tune a little bit. Democrats have settled on a message. Their message is, if we don't stop the bullshit, if we don't extend these premium tax credits on the Affordable Care Act, people's health insurance costs are going to go through the fucking roof. And they are. That is happening right now. People are getting notifications in the open enrollment periods and in their premiums that
may
they're
double
going up
for people.
It's all over the place. And like every fact checker in the country is going, yep, that's what's happening.
True.
So they're saying,
Yes.
we are doing this because we want to work with these guys to make sure your healthcare costs don't go through the ceiling. They refuse to sit down with us, and we are not budging until. Now, there's plenty of other reasons to not want to fund this government. The moral abomination of what ICE is doing, the horrific shit that Donald Trump is doing, and building ballrooms and gold carroting the Oval Office while people are struggling to make ends meet. All that stuff is justifiable. But what Democrats have done, I think, pretty intelligently, despite what I said last week, is focus in on costs of living and specifically healthcare because it is a tangible, real thing. And I don't know if you know this, we'll get into this a little bit in FAFO later. Red states are the ones that are taking this on the chin. So I think it's different because Democrats are totally out of power, but they are united. They are disciplined. They are focused on a message. And right now it seems like they're winning because if you look at who's being blamed for the shutdown, it is overwhelmingly Republicans. What do you think?
To your earlier point, you know what state is expected to see the highest increase in insurance rates? Mississippi.
Oh, I did not know
And
that. That's no
That
good.
is not even close to being a blue state.
But look at this. This is from CNN. This is Harry Enton, not quite friend of the show, but frequent flyer of the show, doing a little run-up, like he wants to do, of the polling on this. Which party gets more blame for the shutdown? New York Times, Republicans by 7. Marist, Republicans by 12. Washington Post, Republicans by 17. That averages to about 15 points more. People are blaming Republicans for the shutdown than Democrats, and it's because the American people may not pay that close attention to politics, but they're not fucking stupid, and they know that Donald Trump and Republicans
Right.
are in charge of the government, so if it shuts down, it's their fault.
I think the reason that this shutdown is different is because usually one party doesn't want the shutdown for a variety of reasons. And I don't know that that's the case this time. Democrats want it for the reasons you explained. I think Republicans are just blindly following Trump, and this isn't all bad for Trump personally. One of the impacts of the shutdown at this moment is that we don't get any new unemployment numbers.
Well, were we going to get them anyway because of the Bureau of Labor Statistics? And then just this week, ADT, which is like a private payroll company but does surveys too, revised their last month's jobs report to be negative something like 35,000 jobs when they thought it was negative, like plus 4,000 or something.
They revised August to be negative 3,000 and then September is negative 32,000. So we've lost 35,000 jobs in the last 2 months.
That's normally a good sign for an economy, right?
Yeah, I think that's what you want. People not working.
You want people losing jobs. That's
yeah. But, Trump doesn't have to talk about that. He doesn't have to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. He can just blame Republicans or Democrats for this.
But it just doesn't seem to be working. I mean, and their entire messaging is just a fucking lie. They just keep repeating over and over and keep getting fact-checked over and over. Democrats are doing this to shut down the government because they want to keep giving free health care to illegals. That is the line. Trump says it. Johnson says it. They all say it. It's fucking blatantly false. It is not true. George Stephanopoulos fact-checks them. CNN, even Fox News reporters are fact-checking them right now.
To that end, here's Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, pushing back on these talking points from Republicans that Democrats are just trying to fund health care for illegal immigrants.
Hakeem also, before I play this clip, seems to have found his footing here, which is good to see.
What's interesting in that Oval Office meeting, it was the meeting lasted for over an hour. And the amount of time that we spent literally in talking about the issue of health insurance for undocumented immigrants was less than 10 seconds. You know why? Because they know it's a lie. So they didn't even bother to bring it up because the cameras weren't rolling. But they'll go out to their press conferences without us, where we're not able to fact check them in real time, and they'll continue to try to spout that lie. But the American people aren't buying it. They know this fight is about Medicaid. It's about their hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health clinics. It's certainly about the Affordable Care Act.
Yep. Pretty simple.
Yeah. And this is another thing. It's very simple. Democrats are saying, we'll vote to reopen the government the second you vote to extend these tax credits and stop skyrocketing healthcare costs. And Republicans are saying, you want to give free healthcare to illegals. And then the fact checkers are saying, that's not what's happening here.
And then they'll say, well, we want to extend the affordable tax credits, but you have to open the government first. Yeah, right. We're going to fall for pulling the football away from us like that.
100%.
The other thing that's different in this shutdown is the degree to which Trump is retaliating against his enemies, pulling federal funding from renewable energy projects in blue states, including Colorado. The Trump administration has frozen $26 billion for New York, California, and Illinois green energy projects. I keep saying products. And this includes Colorado's 8th congressional district. As the Denver Post reports, quote, just last month, Representative Gabe Evans toured United Power's Mountain Peak natural gas peaking plant. It's part of a move away from coal. This investment will help provide more reliable, safe, and affordable energy for the 8th congressional district, Evans wrote on social media in September. The Department of Energy canceled a $6 million grant for the Rural Electric Cooperative on Wednesday.
This is one of those moments where Cory Gardner started figuring out that he was in deep shit sometime in 2018, 2019, and he started trying to work with Democrats on, national parks and funding renewable energy projects and occasionally finding a thing to vote no against Trump. When do you think Evans is going to get the hint that tying himself to Trump's sinking ship in this district is going to cost him his seat if he doesn't stop doing it?
I've wondered before if he had figured that out and just can't stop because he's on that road now. And
Right.
And maybe his end goal really isn't winning re-election. It's becoming a lobbyist or something. I don't know. What's interesting about Trump's attacks on blue state projects is that advisors have warned against this because, surprise, there are also Republicans in those states.
Whoops.
As Reuters reported, I thought this quote was really interesting from Republican Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina. He said he was concerned about the freezing of infrastructure funds for New York because it could make it harder for Congress to exit the shutdown. He says, quote, "They need to be really careful with that because they can create a toxic environment here. So hopefully they're working with the leader and the leader with them on not creating more work to get us out of this posture," unquote. That's a great point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Tillis is sort of unleashed because he's decided he's not running again for re-election in North Carolina. So you're actually probably getting something more true from him than you would have otherwise.
But then listen to this absolutely bonkers comment from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt and tell me this does not sound like a hostage taker in every movie you've ever seen.
Because he mentioned Russ Vought in that. I think that came out about 8 o'clock this morning, about cutting certain programs that they deem are not necessary. Is that real, or is that a negotiating tactic?
Oh, it's very real. And the Democrats should know that they put the White House and the president in this position. And if they don't want further harm on their constituents back home, then they need to reopen the government. It's very simple. Pass the clean continuing resolution, and all of this goes away. We would not be having these discussions here at the White House today if not for the Democrats voting to shut the government down. This is an unfortunate consequence, and the president and Russ Vought will be meeting on that later today.
How much do you think?
Jesus.
Listen, you drop the bag of cash in the garbage pail, and then you get your family back.
It's really something.
How is that different than any of that?
It's not. It's not. This is like the gang that can't shoot straight and has been for a long time, but this is kind of sort of their first major crisis in a weird way, right? Like they've been doing all sorts of horrible shit, but this is the first thing that's sort of happening to them instead of a thing that they're initiating. And they don't have a fucking clue what to do.
They can't change their aggressiveness. They're like, yeah, of course we're extorting Democrats. Like, what? You don't even want to hint around it? To that end, here's Energy Secretary Chris Wright, who is a Coloradan, sadly.
Who, like, every time this guy talks, it's like what Eileen Laubacher said to us last week about how people are associating Lauren Boebert with Colorado. And she's like, no. Like, everybody else is not like that. We have to kind of do this with Chris Wright a little bit because, my God, is he embarrassing. Listen to this.
Just an incredible, irresponsible deployment of taxpayer money. I mean, should American taxpayers really fund decarbonizing Uber Eats in San Francisco or building e-bike lanes in Portlandia? $600 million to further subsidize construction of unreliable, expensive electricity sources in California? California can do what it wants, but the 49 other states' taxpayers shouldn't be subsidizing that.
Well, I mean, it's a law that was appropriated by Congress. It's funding that was passed by Democrats and Republicans. But when people look at
whoops.
Yeah, explain that.
We should mention that Chris Wright is a Colorado-based former oil and gas executive. So when he's talking about subsidies for renewable energies, and he's not coming at this from an objective point of view.
He's been working in industry that's been getting subsidies forever.
He's a climate change denier, and he even just lies about the subsidies that oil and gas companies get too. So good job.
So if you're thinking, how is this legal? You're not alone. Senator John Hickenlooper released a statement saying, quote, "The cancellation of this funding for political vengeance is blatantly illegal. Congress approved this funding to create jobs and to generate cleaner, cheaper power. Even if for some dark reason you are against cleaner energy, these projects are well underway. To abandon them now wastes the funds already invested and needlessly cripples dozens of honest, hardworking small businesses that believed having a legal contract with our country meant something." The White House strategy during their shutdown is to punish Americans who dared to vote against them. That's hard to argue against.
You always have to just like consider the counterfactual. Like try and picture a world in which Joe Biden, instead of like opening up like more drilling and more offshore drilling and more usage of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve during COVID, just said, nope, we're shutting down drilling everywhere forever and we're only going to work off of solar and wind now. Like people would lose their fucking minds and be apoplectic if he was canceling project in red states as a political, retribution tour. This is happening every fucking day in this country. And like, it is costing people money and jobs, and it is making the air and water less clean. And it's so fucking embarrassing that we have just totally lost the plot on climate change because these losers came in and decided that gasoline should be less than $2 a gallon, and it still isn't anyway.
But this is also, it's a very simple issue at heart. Congress approved this. It's done. It was signed into law.
Donald Trump does not see any daylight between the federal government and the Treasury and him and his own personal pocketbook. He thinks he is the state, and the state is him. And it's really dangerous and scary stuff, especially with somebody as corrupt as he is.
We'll wrap this up with a great point from Congressman Pete Aguilar of California.
One of my personal fan faves.
That's what this is about. And the American people are supportive of this, and it's a shame that they continue to use every lever they can to extract pain. But to your question, Nicole, infrastructure jobs being affected, thousands of people potentially laid off. I'm guessing a lot of those people might live in New Jersey too. A lot of those workers who could be laid off. And folks in New Jersey will have a choice in 30 days. Do they want someone running for governor who supports Donald Trump, who supports delaying these infrastructure projects, or do they not?
That, of course, is a reference to the gubernatorial campaign going on in New Jersey and Virginia right now. They have these off-year elections that are going to be decided in about a month and change here. Mikey Sherrill is the Democratic nominee for governor in New Jersey. I don't remember her Republican opponent. It's some Italian dude, and he is very in the tank for Trump.
But this is why I think a lot of Republicans are nervous about what Trump is doing, because that's a really good message.
Yeah.
You're going to back the person that backed that?
Yeah, we're going to find out. There's going to be a data point on whether or not people are cool, not just on polling, not just on, vibes, but literally an election that happens. And as we know, the off-year elections in New Jersey and Virginia are very predictive when it comes to the general elections in the following midterm cycle. That is like political gravity, that whatever happens in those elections affects the outcome or is a predictor of the outcome in those next general elections.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about the big orange guy. We spoke with Eileen Laubacher last week. She's a retired rear admiral, and we asked her about this last-minute all-leadership hands-on-deck meeting in Virginia that Secretary of Defense or War or whatever Pete Hegseth had called. It was embarrassing. There were speeches made in front of a huge American flag that looked just like those scenes from the Patton movie. It cannot have been an accident, because I know
even
Trump
though
likes that movie.
It was like distorted, like it was like the Mercator projection. It was like the flag looked fucking weird. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Like it was all stretched out in like bad proportions.
There were a lot of images of exasperated generals, clearly like trying not to do the facepalm.
And one got caught doing it. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah. He's probably dead now. Like, if this were Russia, he'd be pushed out a window.
Right.
And we're getting close. Anyway, President Trump rambled for more than an hour and literally had to demand applause. Listen to this.
Yeah, this is some weird shit.
I've never walked into a room so silent before. This is very... Don't laugh. Don't laugh. You're not allowed to do that. You know what? Just have a good time. And if you want to applaud, you applaud. And if you want to do anything you want, you can do anything you want. And if you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank. There goes your future. But
guy is still fucking doing like the Borscht Belt comedy hour at the like
I also don't think that was
gathering.
a joke.
Certainly not. No, not the way these guys operate. Yeah, no, they fired all the black people and all the women and all the people of color. So, they're just now they're working their way through the loyalists. That's what's next.
Right. The rest of the speech was a little creepy because Trump kept talking about the military needing to be involved in American cities.
Fire department. I always put the fire department in because they're great. They're great. And I got 95% of their vote, too. That helps. When you get 95% of their vote, you always have to mention them. But they're great. And they're brave.
What a jackass.
In our inner cities, which we're going to be talking about, because it's a big part of war now. It's a big part of war. But the firemen go up in ladders, and you have people shooting at them while they're up in ladders. I don't even know if anybody heard that. But
Yeah.
And I said, don't talk about it much, but I think you have to. Our firemen are incredible. They're up in one of these ladders that goes way up to the sky, rescuing people, and you have animals shooting at them, shooting bullets at firemen that are way up in death territory. You fall off
Like
that
squirrels
ladder, so
shooting at him?
Fucking guy is out to lunch. First of all, there's no fucking way he won 95% of firefighters.
But
Like,
the rambling obscures what he said there.
Yeah, it's true.
American cities are part of war now. What?
Yeah, that was a pretty scary throwaway line in an otherwise terrifying, rambling bit of nonsense.
As for Dude Bro Hegseth, he apparently called military leadership to Virginia mainly to tell them they're all too fat.
Physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test. But today, at my direction, every member of the joint force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year, every year of service.
A quick side note, I don't understand the height requirements. Like, are people going to get taller or shorter?
I didn't know they had height requirements. That's interesting.
Well, they do for like the Air Force, because you can't.
Yeah, it's like, you better meet that height requirement or we're going to stretch your ass out.
Yeah,
like,
get taller, asshole.
Quite know how that part works.
But can you imagine, like, these military leaders flew at last minute from all over the world. They're on their station. They're leading their commands in every corner of the globe. They show up and he tells them they're fat.
Show up to get lectured by a guy who can't do a pull-up. For viewers, check this one out. Yeah, just a real kick struggle there on the and he had the reverse arms, which is like the easy one. Like
that was earlier this year. Picture it. For those who can't see it, it's a video of Hegseth working out with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for some reason, and he can't do a pull-up. So shut the fuck up. And that wasn't the only thing Hegseth said that was gross. We could spend an entire podcast doing this, but here he is on why we should bring back hazing in the military.
We will not lose warfighters because we failed to train or equip them or resource them. Shame on us if we do. Train like your warriors' lives depend on it, because they do. To that point, basic training is being restored to what it should be: scary, tough, and disciplined. We're empowering drill sergeants to instill healthy fear in new recruits, ensuring that future warfighters are forged. Yes, they can shark attack, they can toss bunks, they can swear, and yes, they can put their hands on recruits. This does not mean they can be reckless or violate the law, but they can use tried and true methods to motivate new recruits, to make them the warriors they need to be.
This guy's going to get somebody fucking killed. And
yeah, he is.
Like the stand-up routine, like the pause for laughter and applause that him and Trump were both doing.
Jackass, yeah.
They experienced a very different version of reality than what I think they thought they were walking into.
It was crickets.
Dead quiet in there.
I don't understand the logic there. Like, you know what makes good soldiers? Punching them in the face.
It's just this fucking alpha male bullshit ethos that like requires you to be cruel and mean and physical in order to, I don't know, be respected or something. Bunch of people who really should have gotten hugged more as kids is what it feels like.
Retired Rear Admiral Eileen Laubacher in our previous episode, I mentioned that she had talked about this. And finally, via The Intercept, there was a great story about this whole ridiculous thing that said, quote, 3 different defense officials who spoke with The Intercept called Trump's speech embarrassing. The same defense officials took Hegseth to task for gathering the military's top commanders from around the world for a rant little different than his usual social media posts. One called Hegseth's address garbage, using a term the war secretary used during his speech. Another said, quote, we are diminished as a nation by both Hegseth and Trump, unquote.
It's not like you want a military coup to happen anywhere in this
Unless
country.
you do.
but like at a certain point, if the question is if these guys are going to be ordering soldiers and commanders to fire on civilian protesters, at a certain point they took an oath to the Constitution. They did not take an oath to these freaks, and they're going to have to make a choice.
Yes. Before we leave the subject of Trump, just for kicks, I thought it would be fun to play this response to a question on the 2020 election that Trump had recently.
And this clip is from September 30th of this year.
If you talk about insulin, so it was 200, 300, 500, and you couldn't get it, and I got it down to 35. And I said, I hope I win the next election, because otherwise whoever wins is going to take credit for it. Well, what happened is we did win the election. We did great. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way from a practical standpoint. And Biden, when I saw him get up and take credit for the $35 and even less insulin, that was lower than...
It didn't work out from a practical perspective. We won, but I wasn't president, so you didn't win.
Unfucking believable.
All right, let's go to our fuck around and find out of the week.
Well, this one is from our friends at Newsweek. You searched high and low, and it didn't take very long because the facts are out there. This map shows the highest health insurance premium increases by state. This is published on October 2nd, so this week. And if you take a look-see right down here, what you see is, bam, states with health insurers requesting a highest premium rate change for 2026. The red is only a 5% increase on the map, and a blue is up to a 58.9% increase in health insurance premiums. Let's see, Washington State, 39% on average. Texas, 41.5% on average. Red Florida, not so red on this map. I don't know what's happening. God damn it. Red Florida, 40.8% is a percentage increase. Virginia, where there's a big important election happening in a couple of weeks, 40% increase. New Jersey, only an 18.4% increase.
So
if you
the red states are blue in this
the red
map.
states are blue.
The map
in this
is confusing. But
if you are paying premiums on the individual market to get health care for yourself or your family, which a large portion of the population is doing in this country, you are about to see your bills jump anywhere from 5 to 60%. And if you're in one of these states that we mentioned, it's more like 40 or 50%.
Yep. You voted for the guy who's going to double your health insurance.
Great job.
Good work. Well, the Colorado Republicans have proudly embraced Marxism. Yeah. Let that sink in for a second. All right. New candidate.
Not like the fun, let's share
Marx.
Everything kind of Karl Marxism, but a different kind of Marxism.
Not friendly old Karl Marx. There's a new Republican candidate for governor named Victor Marx, who is Lauren Boebert's chosen candidate for 2026. Marx is also getting for governor, yes. Marx is also getting a lot of support from Heidi Ganahl, who in 2022 became the least, or probably the worst statewide candidate in the history of the state. So, there's that.
Certainly, if you look at the election results.
Here's Kyle Clark with 9 News on this Marx dude.
The latest Republican in the 2026 race for Colorado governor is a ministry leader from Colorado Springs. Victor Marx is promising to, quote, challenge the godless ideology that has eroded Denver's institutions and allowed corruption and cultural decay to spread. Marx is kicking off his campaign in the Springs tonight. He joins a crowded field on what could be called the MAGA/evangelical far right. But he brings in a big social media following, nearly 2 million followers on Facebook, and he's been connected over the years to the national MAGA movement. like the recently assassinated activist Charlie Kirk and his allies. Mark soft-launched his campaign for governor at a Charlie Kirk memorial service last month with the backing of the pastor at Brave Church, a megachurch in Inglewood.
I'm telling you, come October 1st, I'm going to let all y'all know if, in fact, God is calling me to run and win for governor.
Mark's going to have plenty of company in that MAGA lane for the GOP primary for governor. State Senator Barb Kirkmeyer is probably the establishment favorite, and any Republican is going to be a long shot. Colorado has only had one Republican governor in the last 50 years.
Love that stat.
I initially, when I heard about this guy, I was initially a little concerned, like, oh, well, maybe they found a charismatic, decent candidate who doesn't have all the political baggage. Then I spent about 5 minutes Googling him, and I'm not worried anymore. This guy is a caricature of himself. He's one of those evangelical podcasters and public speakers with a square jaw and a sturdy build, and he's always got a pensive stare, like looking off into the horizon. And I guess he goes around the country giving speeches on how to be a man and shit like that. It's hard to take him seriously when you do this Google search because of how many of these photos. You can see them on our video watchers here. There's so many of them of him just staring off into space with things like a close call or all things possible or dog identifies trans man. I don't know what that one is. I don't know. It's weird though if you look for him.
Yeah, it's very pensive stare. It's when you unpack these photo shoots, it's like, all right, you got to look off into the no, square up that jaw a little bit. You gotta give me a little more squinty in the eyes. You're a little too visible there, Victor.
I think Marx will probably come off well in sound bites, but I bet he'll have trouble when people start paying closer attention. I can see him saying, like, together we can help Colorado. Oh, I need to do the gravelly. Together we can help Colorado find its moral compass again. And people will be like, yay. And then he'll say something like, and women can go back to cooking, baking, and cleaning the house.
Ooh.
And it'll be crickets.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we haven't seen like the Colorado Republican celebrity before, right? Like Dog the Bounty Hunter has never run. Like,
yeah. I mean, celebrity is a very loose term here.
Fair enough. I mean, look, like I don't understand the megachurch thing. Like Jews don't do that. And like he's got like 2 million followers on whatever. So like maybe half of them are bots. Maybe a third of them live somewhere else. But like the dude has some kind of constituency, whether it's a megachurch in Colorado Springs or Inglewood or whatever. What's interesting is that he immediately gets the Boebert, Ganal sort of radical extremist, MAGA lunatic, like
right. That tells you a lot.
Tells you a lot. And what it more, I think, tells you is that Barb Kirkmeyer is going to have a rough couple of months trying to win the nomination.
Nobody in the party seems to like Barb Kirkmeyer.
Both ways, Barb.
All right, let's go to Oldie But Goodie, Game of Groans.
What did the state party fuck up now, Jason?
It would be shorter to say what did they do right, but we'll start with the fact that they can't figure out a vacancy committee. State law requires vacancy committees to meet no fewer than 10 days after a written notice is mailed to the committee members, but the El Paso County Republican Party notified their members the day after Rose Puglisi's September 15th resignation and had the selection a week later. Ava Flanell, a gun-toting Boebert wannabe, was
celebrity.
Elected.
Gun celebrity.
She was elected, but they're going to have to do it again. County Republican Chair Ken Davis said the original vacancy committee was abiding by the local bylaws. That's cute that you think your local bylaws override state laws.
Turns out you actually have to adhere to the laws. Yeah. Not the
but
bylaws,
our rules
but
said
the
we could do it.
Laws. Yeah.
The thing I wrote on a napkin says we can do it.
So that's like go through the whole thing again and like do the nomination and do the election and do the vacancy committee and submit the paperwork and blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, the people who live in this district go unrepresented for another couple weeks.
And the fact that they have to do this again is a little concerning because Colorado Republicans appear to not be able to do basic math. They had another meeting recently on trying to cancel the party primaries and pick candidates via party assemblies, which is
Which,
something
like,
that
I thought Brita Horn was supposed to, like, this was one of the dumb Dave Williams-isms that she was trying to undo. Did I get that wrong?
That's what I thought. I don't know. This is really hard to follow.
This is to undermine a state law that was passed, I believe, by the voters, opening up the primary election to unaffiliated voters so that more people could participate. Unaffiliated voters are almost half of the voters in Colorado, and in order to let them cast a meaningful vote, they have to be able to participate in the primary because, like Kyle Clark said, a Republican has not been elected governor in Colorado for 50 years. So if you're an unaffiliated, you want to be able to choose which party you want to nominate.
What the right wing wants is to just pick their craziest people via the assembly,
right,
and not let anyone vote, which actually I would be in favor of because that's really dumb of them.
Victor Marx by acclamation, like
right. That would be terrible for them. But anyway, at this meeting, as Ernest Lenning reports for the Colorado Springs Gazette political website, 226 of the 507-member state central committee, about 45%, voted for a motion to abide by a previous resolution in favor of opting out that was overwhelmingly adopted at the party's 2024 state assembly. I can't follow that at all. While those 226 votes amounted to a majority at the meeting, with 196 voting against the motion, Republicans opposed to canceling the primary said the vote doesn't satisfy the legal threshold requirement, so has no effect. Other people are saying they're going to sue.
This is one of those situations where they just go, well, we didn't get the outcome we want, so it doesn't count. We're going to do it again.
Yeah, but let these people count by hand all our ballots. That's what
I love that. Yeah, that's great. Let's let them hand count every vote and then definitely put them in charge of important things because they have their shit together.
Right. This meeting was actually adjourned because security at the venue kicked them out because they had overstayed their reservation. People are idiots. All right, let's talk about some bullshit. Delaware Senator Chris Coons was not backing down on Fox News on the subject of false claims that Democrats want to fund health care for illegal immigrants.
I'm sorry? I was just adding that there are people who came to the country illegally, who got looped in under temporary protection status, who do receive those benefits. And we're going to get into that a little bit deeper in the next. Yes, there are. There are people who have temporary protection status, which makes them, quote, legal. And that's why they're falling under this legal protection, because it was expanded during COVID. And that's, I understand that there's two sides to this argument, but those are the people that are getting argued over right now.
There's not two sides to this argument. The president said Democrats want to give a gold-plated Medicare program for illegal aliens. That's not true. You can only benefit from the Affordable Care Act, Medicare and Medicaid, if you have legal status in this country.
Which was broadly expanded.
We are not
COVID.
fighting for health care for people who are here illegally. That's not true. But we are fighting for health care for Americans.
All right.
But President Trump said so.
What she and they are trying to do is muddy the waters because their audience is fucking stupid and pretend that they can't tell the difference between somebody who is undocumented, literally no documentation, and somebody who has TPS, temporary protective status, literally documentation saying you're in this country legally, even if it's temporary.
There's no bill that says this. There's no memo that says this. There's nothing. They're not.
Nonsense.
Democrats are not doing this.
Nope. No, and like, it's again, like it feels like they're actually winning this one. It's interesting.
Democrats, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
And one more, just for this week, I guess we'll have to call it That's Baloney, just in deference to the person here.
Whatever the Italian word for baloney is, or Latin, I suppose.
Pope Leo XIV, otherwise known as the American Pope, because he's from Chicago.
Pope Bob.
Had some great words for the so-called pro-life movement. I loved this. He said, quote, "Someone who says I'm against abortion but says I'm in favor of the death penalty is not really pro-life. Someone who says that I'm against abortion but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treatment of immigrants in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life," unquote.
Ooh, Pope smash.
Pope smash. He's right, though. You can't.
Yeah, of course he's right.
You can't do both.
And what's cool about the Pope is he can't lose an election, so he gets to be honest.
Right. Right. Trump's like, how do I unpope him? You can't.
Can I nominate a new pope? I'm firing the pope and replacing him with a political sycophant.
Right. Marjorie Taylor Greene will be the new pope. All right. Let's do some quick hits and then we'll get out of here. We did this last week, but apparently we have to do it again. It's always a Republican.
It's always a Republican. I'm not going to play that weird AI song I made a couple of years ago.
This
one's from Slate. MAGA's top voter fraud watchdog votes in a swing state. He doesn't live there. A long paper trail shows that Jack Posobiec votes in one state and lives in another. I love how they caught him in this whoopsie-daisy picture right here. Jack Posobiec is very concerned about voter fraud and influential, this from the article, influential MAGA voice and prominent conspiracy theorist. He's perhaps best known for amplifying the 2016 Pizzagate conspiracy, which culminated in a man firing a gun in a D.C. pizzeria. In the years since, Posobiec has loudly espoused a range of debunked conspiracy theories that includes the GOP theory, once semi-fringe and now thoroughly MAGA mainstream. The Democrats have won elections via millions of fraudulent votes. The Republican National Committee last fall enlisted him to speak to poll watchers about election security. Posobiec is particularly focused on Pennsylvania, repeatedly accusing the state's Democratic official of fraud, even spreading conspiracy theories that were followed by an RNC lawsuit. The focus on voter fraud in Pennsylvania is particularly ironic because it sure looks like, and a trail of documentation suggests, that Posobiec is living in Maryland but voting in Pennsylvania. If so, that would be a violation of voting laws, experts say.
And as we always say in this segment, if there is a Democrat that is caught with voter fraud, doing voter fraud, we will let you know. We haven't seen it yet.
Send it to us. We will cover it just like we covered the rest. But as for now, it is always a Republican.
Yeah, the statistically almost impossible. It's just like 99 out of 100. There's another failed recall attempt in Colorado, though I guess saying it failed would have to indicate that it kind of started, and I'm not sure that it did.
It failed to launch, right?
Yes. Aurora City Council member and all-around lunatic Danielle Jurinsky filed pulled recall petitions because she was upset with Arapahoe County District Attorney Amy Padden. Jurinsky had to wait 6 months to do this because Padden had just gotten elected, and the law, for obvious reasons, says you can't recall someone until they've actually done the job. I think the media needs to stop reporting when they pull petitions like this because it makes it sound like a legitimate recall. The group eventually this week had to say, yeah, we're not going to turn in petitions. We didn't do anything. They had no intention of trying to do it. They just wanted the negative news story.
They wanted the bad news story. They wanted to inspire fear in a newly elected official. They wanted to try and, maybe they thought that they could catch fire and get enough people to pay attention. And what's interesting about this is it goes along a thread that we've discussed before, which is part of the poison in Colorado politics right now is this lie about nonpartisan municipal elections. So, Republicans in Colorado, the smart ones at least, know that you cannot win a fair fight in a general election against Democrats in the state for the foreseeable future. Republicans' brand is totally toxic, totally trashed, and for good reason. So in Aurora, and cities like it, they run these radical candidates with no party ID on the ballot, and they get elected because special interests spend an insane amount of money boosting their candidacies.
And voters don't really know.
And voters don't really know the difference, and because there's no easy way to tell who a Republican is on the ballot, they vote for the person whose name they recognize the most. I assume Jurinsky and company were trying to pull a fast one on Amy Padden, thinking that they could, if this thing caught on, they got the signatures, they run the recall, they'd probably win because who shows up to recalls? The people who are most angry, not the people who are most affected, and they tend to happen in off months.
Although I don't know that they actually even tried.
Yeah. I'm giving them the most benefit of the doubt possible, and I think they still lose in that scenario.
Aurora City Council members, the Republicans, recently gathered at an event where they all talked about being Republican and how Democrats suck. This has to end. We're going to keep talking about it because this is nonsense. It's a transparency issue. It's a voter information issue. Just put the letter of their party next to their name on the ballot.
Voters deserve to know who's going to represent them, and this idea that not disclosing someone's political affiliation on the ballot creates nonpartisan government is an obvious fucking lie.
Yeah, that's silly. Jessica Killen seems to have gotten the Get More Smarter boost.
Thank you all, everybody who listened to our interview and helped put her over the top by contributing because she has raised $1 million or more in the third quarter, the first one of her full campaign so far. That's a record for any candidate in CO5, regardless of party. Great news for friend of the pod, Jessica Killen. Fucking terrible news for one of the Jeffs.
It also, though, shows the problems with a heavily Republican district like this. I don't think Doug Lamborn, who was in that seat for 18, 20 years, I don't think he raised $1 million over the course of a year.
I never had to.
You didn't have to, yeah. I mean, that's...
Yeah, if I were Jeff Crank, I'd be sweating pretty hard right now, man. She is coming for him and coming in hot.
Yep, and we're joking about the boost, obviously. I don't think we're responsible for the $1 million.
No,
but...
she got like the Jessica Killen, Doug Emhoff boost that she earned and deserved.
Right.
But if you did contribute to her after listening or follow her around on social media and whatnot, thanks.
Yeah, let us know and we'll start saying it.
Yeah.
Gabe Evans says, what? Our eighth favorite member of Congress from Colorado just keeps making shit up. Via friend of the pod, Tyler Duncan of the Greeley Tribune, according to a state report from August 2024, 60% of Colorado's air pollution originates from the oil and gas industry, with 45% of that coming from Weld County alone. But Gabe Evans says, no, 70% of the detected emissions in Weld County originate from outside Colorado, specifically Canada and China.
70% of the emissions in Weld County are from China?
I don't think this needs to be fact-checked. That can't be true. Like, that's silly.
I also think that, like, we should just make it official. Lauren Boebert is our 7th favorite member of Congress from Colorado, and Gabe Evans is number 8. He wins. He is it.
And
it's him.
The more I hear from him, the more I think about how he is the perfect example of a Republican politician in the Trump era. He'll say anything. He doesn't care whether it makes sense, whether it's true. It just has to refute in some way whatever statement he doesn't like.
You know, between him and Bible-thumping speaker Mike Johnson claiming that they only care about what one book says, they sure seem to have glossed over the thou shalt not bear false witness part.
That wasn't in their updated version, maybe.
No, it's in the Old Testament.
That
so
part got scratched out.
It's in both. Yeah, I promise.
And finally, our gibberish of the week. We've got a part 1 and part 2. Here's J.D. Vance, the actual vice president.
Who will never be the actual president.
God willing. He's trying to justify President Trump sending out a racist AI video of Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer in which Jeffries is made to wear a sombrero and a big black mustache. Jeffries has called this racist because it is. Here's
go ahead and ask the second question.
So the president's been posting some images of Leader Jeffries and Senator Schumer.
I saw
recently. You've said that you're interested in good faith negotiations with these leaders, but what message does that send? Is it helpful to post pictures of Leader Jeffries in a sombrero if you're trying to have good faith talks with him?
Oh, I think it's funny. The president's joking, and we're having a good time. You can.
Oh, we're having such a good time.
Also poking a little bit of fun at some of the absurdities of the Democrats' position.
Stupid brown people. This is fun.
Some fun at the absurdity of the Democrats themselves. I mean, I'll tell Hakeem Jeffries right now, I make this solemn promise to you that if you help us reopen the government, the sombrero memes will stop. And I've talked to the President of the United States about that. Now, to your first question, are we negotiating?
Okay, stop that. Again, maybe not a joke.
No, like, it's not funny, but, they fill the fucking press room with a bunch of sycophants from, like, the Turning Point Action Network news Substack, and, like, then you have your little comedy audience for
and
your
Joe has a blog from
racist government shutdown AI meme. I fucking hate it here.
Here's part 2 of this gibberish.
I think Pete's trying to re-implement high standards, and that's a very good thing. On the sombrero thing, I mean, Hakeem Jeffries said it was racist, and I know that he said that, and I honestly don't even know what that means. Like, is he a Mexican American that is offended by having a sombrero meme? I mean, I saw one of the major TV stations put the meme up and then say, this is AI generated. And he had, like, the curly animated mustache, too. It's like, do you really not realize the American people recognize that he did not actually come to the White House wearing a sombrero and a black curly animation mustache? Like, give the country a little bit of credit. We're all trying to do a very important job for the American people. The President of the United States likes to have a little bit of fun when he's doing it, and I think that's okay. I'll take one.
That's not the issue. The issue isn't whether people thought it was real. Nope. It's racist.
But this is what they do. They just fucking sidestep and, shadow box and what's it called? Something hopping. Do you know what I'm talking about? I don't know.
Sort of.
They have this phrase for galloping, gish galloping. Anyway, it's a fucking rhetorical technique that they use to just kind of like humana, and then change the subject until it's back on there.
What about your allegations that police are assaulting people? Well, I don't know why you think the Denver Broncos won't win this week.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's bullshit. All right. That's it for us this week.
The Get More Smarter podcast is a production of ColoradoPulse.com and the Big Horn Company. Our hosts are me, Ian Silveri, and America's dad,
Jason Bain,
who managed to figure out how to engineer and produce this thing. We are not sure if she can hear this, but we really hope Megan's ears get better soon.
Get better, Megan.
Thanks for everything you do to help this show. I've been doing the video, which is why they're not as good, and I do write the Substack. Megan is so good, and we appreciate her very much. Breakmaster Cylinder made the theme song. Get your shots while you still can. Protect your trans kids, your autistic kids, your immigrant kids, and any other kids in your life. Really, subscribe to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Rate the show and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you got more smarter, it actually helps us a lot. Come battle the trolls in our YouTube comment section and find us at getmoresmarter.com, where a lot of you have been finding us lately, and you can sign up for bonus content in our Substack. Please send all angry and non-angry rants to angerrants at getmoresmarter.com, other stuff to Ian at getmoresmarter.com, and other stuff to Jason at getmoresmarter.com. Thank you so much to State Representative and candidate for State Treasurer Brianna Titone for joining us on the podcast today, and thank you so much for listening once again. We'll see you next time.
Send us more reviews. We need new reviews.
We do. We could use the reviews.